Hello and welcome to my channel In Search of Wonder. My name is Anne and today we are going to the Folger Shakespeare Library. I figured it was only appropriate for our expedition that I take my Shakespearean insults cup. You Rempellion, you Fusiliarian, not so much brain as earwax. I like that one. I need to remember that, say it at the appropriate time. Lump of foul deformity. Highly fed and lowly taught. Wow. All the infections that the sun sucks up. I do desire we may be better strangers. That's Shakespeare for you. So the Folger Shakespeare Library is in Washington, D.C., about an hour from where I live. I have grown up in the metropolitan DC area. I've lived here most of my life, within a stone's throw of Washington, DC. I have been to Washington, DC countless times, and I have seen all of the main tourist attractions that are there. However, this year, in my 45th year of life, was the very first time that I ever went to the Folger Shakespeare Library. Now, to be fair, they only very recently did a renovation in their building, and they added their coffee shop, and which I'll talk about in a minute here. And they had been closed prior to that for several years, closed to the public. But before they reopened, I can't say that I even knew anything about the library. I heard the name because they also have a theater, and they don't necessarily do full-scale productions there because I don't think it's large enough, but they do lectures and they do poetry readings and they do presentations. They do have events in the Folger Theater, and I was aware of it, but I never attended anything there, never went there. But in the past couple of years, since they've reopened and done all of their renovations and everything, I keep getting information about it on social media because, Facebook and Instagram, they know what I like, right? So I keep getting information about it, and I kept thinking, okay, I really want to go to this Folger Shakespeare Library. And so finally, my sisters and I were able to go last week. It was one of my summer goals this year, and I did it. And I'm so thankful that I went, and it is now absolutely 100% my favorite thing to do in Washington, D.C., bar none. So I apologize if you hear the cicadas every now and then. They swell to a rising chorus and they get pretty loud. The Folger Shakespeare Library. I'm going to take you there with me today and show you just a glimpse of some of what you can find there. But I highly recommend that any bookish person who is in the DC area make a plan in your schedule to include the Folger Shakespeare Library. As you will see in the clip here in just a little bit, it is right off the beaten path on your way into DC. It is a stone's throw from the Capitol building. It is adjacent to all of the other tourist attractions that people go to in Washington, DC. The mall, the Smithsonian museums, everything. It's close by. It's close to the Library of Congress and the Capitol and all of that stuff. So it is perfectly convenient to include in your day of walking around and seeing the sites that are in DC. And I highly, highly recommend it. Furthermore, like all of the Smithsonians, it's not a Smithsonian, but like the Smithsonians in DC, it is 100% free. And it just can't be beat. I absolutely 100% recommend, and I don't know why I never went there sooner. Let me take a minute here before we dive into the tour to give you a little bit of background information about what the Folger Shakespeare Library is and how it came to be. Let's start with what is probably most familiar to you, which is the widely available and widely used Folger Shakespeare Library editions of Shakespeare's works. I have here 3 different editions of 3 of his plays. This one is a student copy bound in cardboard for students. It's from the South Lakes High School English Department in Reston, Virginia, and I bought it at a library sale at some point. And the primary feature that all Folger Shakespeare editions have is that they have on the right side the actual text of the play, and then on the left side they have a box with explanations, definitions, enlightening information to help give you context for the story. And most of the Shakespeare I have read has been with a Folger Shakespeare Library edition, which I really love. Nowadays, there's also the No Fear Shakespeare, which I think is great for the modern generation, because I don't know how to put this without throwing a Shakespearean insult out there, but I think that that's what they need. And that has basically like a modern language translation of the Shakespeare on the left side, and then the original on the right side. So you can read them both simultaneously, or just read the modern version if you prefer. But I like these because once you get into the rhythm of Shakespeare's language, it's actually pretty easy to understand, and then you just have to glance over to the left side if there's anything that you want more information about, or if there's a word that you have that stumps you and you don't know. I really love the Folger Shakespeare Library editions, and I knew about these long before I knew about the library in DC. Here, this is probably my newest one. I don't know what year this one was printed. This one was in 1999, so this is still 25 some years old. And then this one also has some illustrations on the left-hand side as well, to give you even more context for the story. And then this one I like, let's see, when was this one? 1959 is this edition. It's in pretty good condition. But you can see they all have the same feature. The left page has all of the meanings and everything, and the right page has the text. So the Folger Shakespeare Library editions are published, well, in coordination with a publishing company, but they're produced by the Folger Institute, which also runs the Folger Shakespeare Library, and in turn is all run by Amherst College, which was the alma mater of Henry Clay Folger. Now, Henry Clay Folger was a very interesting person. He came from a very interesting background. His ancestor, I think 10 generations back, was Peter Folger, who immigrated to the colonies at the time from England in the 1600s. And he settled in Massachusetts. And he lived a couple of different places in Massachusetts, but he ended up in the Nantucket area. And he had a variety of roles in Massachusetts that were instrumental in developing the colony, and he learned the Wampanoag language, and he was able to translate and speak to the Native Americans. So he served in that capacity. He was also a surveyor. He was a teacher. He ended up being the grandfather of Benjamin Franklin. His daughter, Abia, was the mother of Benjamin Franklin. So definitely an integral founding father, not one whose name gets thrown around all of the time. He wasn't a famous founding father by any means, but he was one of those many people who contributed to the development of the colonies and of the country of the United States of America in its history. Incidentally, another of Peter Folger's descendants, forget his first name, but he was another Folger. He was in the generation just prior to Henry Clay Folger, who started the Folger Shakespeare Library. This Folger, forget his first name, apologies, he moved to the West during the California Gold Rush, and he did not get rich in gold, but he bought a company that at the time was, in addition to producing spices and the like, was selling a pre-ground coffee. And you can guess the end result. He bought that company and he renamed it Folger after himself, and was the founder of the Folger Coffee Company. So this very illustrious family has a lot of impact on American society and culture in ways that we don't even realize, and have impacted us without us even knowing it. So the Folger family, pretty influential in the United States. So Henry Clay Folger and his wife were very interested in Shakespeare. His wife, Emily, she actually wrote her master's thesis. I believe she got a master's degree, and she wrote her thesis. This was like in the late 1800s, I think. She wrote a thesis about Shakespeare, and I think she went to Vassar College, I believe. Anyway, she wrote a thesis about Shakespeare. She was very well educated on the whole topic of Shakespeare, and obviously she was very interested in it. And Henry also had been interested in Shakespeare since attending lectures at his college, Amherst College. And so they both combined their passion for Shakespeare with their financial means, because Henry Folger started as a clerk in an oil company, and he advanced into the company to the point where he became the CEO. And that company is now Mobil Oil. So he had plenty of finances at his disposal. So he and his wife used their funds and their means to begin collecting Shakespeare. And they eventually amassed the largest Shakespeare collection in the world. The cornerstone of the Folger Shakespeare Library collection is their collection of the first folios, which were bound copies of Shakespeare's plays printed in, I believe, 1623, and called the first folios. What I learned at the Folger Shakespeare Library is that there were about 750 of those first folios printed in that year, and that the whereabouts of about 250 or some of them are known. And at the Folger Shakespeare Library, they have over a third of those copies in their collection. So it is a massive and very expensive collection, and Henry and his wife Emily spent the majority of their adult life collecting those books. Not only did they collect Shakespeare's actual printed works from the Renaissance era, they collected anything and everything that had to do with Shakespeare directly or tangentially. And plays in that time and era, works by other playwrights, works that were influenced by Shakespeare, works that influenced Shakespeare, etc. They amassed quite a collection. And the collection continues to be added to this day under the auspices of Amherst College and the Folger Institute that runs, and the trust, the board, all of that run the Folger Shakespeare Library. They're still collecting works. They've brought in and expanded it, but still the essential core element of their collection is works that were influenced by Shakespeare, works that have to do with the Renaissance era, the development of the English-speaking culture, and Shakespeare's influence on literature and drama, etc., all of that kind of stuff. So they are basically the world's experts on Shakespeare. And that is why when I was on vacation recently, I picked up this copy, this vintage Folger Guide to Shakespeare, an indispensable companion to the study of Shakespeare, including complete synopses of the plays. And this was published by the Folger Library. And what was the year here? This printing was from 1977. So they are the established experts on Shakespeare, and that is the background and the history of the Folger Shakespeare Library. So I want to take you with me on a little visit just to give you a glimpse. There is so much more to the library than what I am showing you here. As I said, there is a theater, so if it fits in your schedule, you can attend a lecture or a reading or a special performance there at the theater. I don't know that they do full plays. I've not seen that advertised, but they may. I'm not 100% sure about that. But you can see different kinds of productions there. But also they have the actual library and a library collection, which you can access it only if you have a library card, and you have to apply for the library card. It's typically utilized by researchers, authors, writers, students. Those are typically the people who would gain access to the Shakespeare Library. But as a member of the public, they do have public times available for you to go into the reading room and to see it. There is a docent there who can tell you all about the collection and give you more information about it if you have questions. They also have permanent exhibits that tell you a little bit about Shakespeare's life and about his works and about the Folger's collecting process and what they collected. And they also have rotating exhibits, which are really fun. So I want to go back again, when there are some new exhibits there, and see what they have. This time when I went, there were exhibits about the Elizabethan court life and what it was like to be a courtier in the time of Queen Elizabeth I. And there is some artwork there related to that. There are copies of books from their collection that you can see under glass. You can examine some of the priceless artifacts and works of literature and drama that they have there at the library. A lot of the exhibits have some fun interactive components to them. We had my little niece with us who is going into 4th grade, I believe, and she enjoyed herself as well. She even bought herself a children's version of the Midsummer Night's Dream in the gift shop there, which, by the way, they have a fantastic gift shop with all sorts of bookish gifts available, as well as, of course, Shakespeare-centric gift items and books and all kinds of things. So it's not a very large gift shop, but it is very well curated and has a lot of fun finds. And of course, they have the coffee shop, which was my favorite part. And now, if I'm ever in DC doing the tourist thing or taking people there to DC, I am going to make a stop at that coffee shop, even if I don't go into the actual library. It is easily the coolest coffee shop that I have been to, and I have been to so many of them. So, without further ado, let's take a little ride into the heart of Washington, DC, and go visit the Folger Shakespeare Library.
We are heading into DC on a Friday afternoon when the traffic is going the other direction. To the left is the Kennedy Center. Straight ahead is, of course, the Washington Monument. There's a closer glimpse behind the trees of the Washington Monument. Smithsonian museums all along the way. The mall there to your right, where people are walking along on the sidewalk. All along the mall, you will find the various buildings that are famous in DC, including the Capitol here, glimpsing again through the trees. And there's the Folger Library, just across from the Capitol. I'm actually going to take you in on a backwards route from the one that we took. And this is where we ended our tour. But today we're going to start here at this entrance to the building. There are multiple entrances, but I just love the Shakespearean Elizabethan feel of this entryway and the grand architecture there. This is the entrance where the coffee shop is. And this machine, which allowed people to see 2 pages at once, from 2 different books so that they could compare the differences, like lay them on top and make a composite image so they could compare the differences in the various editions of Shakespeare. This is the coffee shop. I love this room. It put me so much in mind of the Trinity College Library in Dublin. So gorgeous with the wood paneling and that ceiling and those windows that let in so much light. So it seemed like such an airy space, even with all of that dark wood paneling and all of the engravings and the artwork, and there were busts. And of course, the coffee options. They had some Shakespeare-inspired beverages. I got Ophelia's Bloom in this souvenir cup, which was only like $3. So definitely a fun souvenir to get when you go there. We had a great time relaxing after our tour and enjoying our beverages. The reading room is adjacent to the coffee shop, and while we were there, it opened to the public at 5 o'clock in the evening for visitors to come in and tour. There was a docent there, but she was very busy speaking to some other patrons, so I did not interrupt her. But I do know that behind this plaque here are the remains of Henry and Emily Folger, who built this collection. They designed this building, but unfortunately, Henry Folger died shortly after it was built and the cornerstone was laid. I love these beautiful, gorgeous stained glass windows and that plaster work in the ceiling there. Absolutely gorgeous building. And look at those railings with the carved wood. So beautiful. And then, of course, the actual books. I'm not 100% sure about the books that you have access to in the reading room. I haven't looked into that. I don't know if they are copies of the works available or if they're actual first editions in here and rare books that you can handle. I imagine there are some that you can, but it looked to me like a lot of them were either copies or were like rebound and not in original bindings, because there were a lot of like, see all those green bindings and the red bindings, like similarly bound books.
As I mentioned before, There are a lot of hands-on exhibits in the library that you can see. One of them was a really fun thing where you could hit a button and you could choose whether you wanted an insult or like a romantic statement. I forget what they called it, but like a romantic statement, an expression of love, or just a random bonus comment. And so you would push a button and the screen would display a quote from one of Shakespeare's plays. And then another person could hit a button on their side, and so then you could have this conversation back and forth using entirely Shakespearean language from his dramas. And that was a lot of fun. We experimented with that for quite a while, trading insults and loving comments and compliments and the like. That was a lot of fun. Another exhibit was, they had an example of a printing press from Shakespeare's era, when his first folios were printed. And then you could use a kind of facsimile of that. They had pre-sorted words, so they had the words put together. You didn't have to put the letters into words, but they had words with using the printing tiles. You had to place them in the correct order on the printing tray, and then you could press down and print it. And what you printed would show up on the screen above you. Instead of actually printing out a paper, it would just show up on the screen above you. So we had fun coming up with little phrases and sentences and putting them in the correct order on the printing tray and showing everybody what we have printed. So those interactive exhibits were a lot of fun, and my niece really enjoyed this. So there are even fun things for children to do as well.
It's like a puzzle, but we don't have the right pieces. Okay. Did I do it right? I did.
Good job.
Yay.
Period.
Let me do one more.
This was a fun display that we all enjoyed poring over. It is a drawing of a kind of world with all these different locations: the castle, the justice hall, the court, Cupid's estate, etc. And all of the people depicted in those drawings are characters from Shakespeare's plays, in situations from his plays. And so you can go through there and find different characters that you recognize doing things from the scenes in the play. And there's a key on the side that tells you which characters and which plays are represented here. I do believe there is also a puzzle available for this. I believe I saw it in the gift shop, and I'm actually kind of would really love to have it. I was really bad though at remembering which characters came from which scenes. This here is a really unique wall decor that they have. They have taken pages and illustrations from the Folger Shakespeare Library collection, and they have made these facsimiles of them and papered the walls with them. So these are all actual pages or illustrations taken from actual printed books in their collection, and then they used that to create this wall art or sort of wallpaper that you see here.
The actual collection of first folios of Shakespeare is all protected behind glass in climate-controlled rooms and storage, so you can't actually touch or feel, of course, any of the first folios. However, you can see them through the glass, and there's an interactive exhibit that gives you a lot more information and about each of those editions, and also shows you pages and highlights of those editions, things that made them unique. For example, some of those all of those first folios obviously were originally owned by someone. So in this exhibit, you can learn a little bit about the people who owned the books prior to the Folgers purchasing them. You can see their annotations in the books. You can see the drawings that they left in the books, which is really interesting and a whole lot of fun. The exhibit also talks a lot about the process of book collecting and what things are important to different book collectors. What is more important, having a complete copy of the book, or having it in pristine condition, or having an excellent binding, or having that personal element of the previous owner leaving their marks behind in the book. It was a very informative exhibit, and I don't think that you would have time on one visit, unless you gave yourself the whole day, to really plumb the depths of the information that they had available on all of those books. Even if you couldn't touch any of them with your actual fingers, you could see them with your eyes, and then you could virtually experience everything that it was possible to learn about those first folio editions that the Folgers collected.
Part of their exhibits are works that are influenced by Shakespeare. Here is one of Louisa May Alcott's short stories that she was obviously inspired by characters in a story by Shakespeare, and this is part of her manuscript for that story.
These look like saucy profile pics. Miniatures from the 16th century. Look at her. I mean, he's just being sassy.
In my opinion, part of the charm of this building is the actual building, this library. You see the quotes at the top and the reliefs at the bottom, which we'll look at more closely here in a second. The windows are amazing. The marble and the stone just fit in perfectly with all of the architecture that existed prior to this in DC already. It blends in naturally with the cityscape, if you will. Here are these reliefs, which feature scenes and characters from Shakespeare's most famous plays. So let's take a closer look at those. And now we're going to finish up our tour where we actually started. We went into this entrance, which led you through this beautiful garden full of these pollinating plants with butterflies and bees, and just a gorgeous setting, walking you into the downstairs entrance and featuring over here on the wall this lovely quote by Shakespeare. And with that, we wrap up our tour of the Folger Shakespeare Library in Washington, D.C.
Well, I hope you enjoyed visiting the Folger Shakespeare Library with me, and I really hope that if you are ever in this area that you will make plans to stop by and see it, because I promise you, if you are a reader, you will not be disappointed. You will enjoy the galleries and the exhibits and the reading room and the coffee shop. You will love all of it, and it's right there, conveniently located in Washington, D.C. So let me know if you go and visit the Folger Shakespeare Library and how you like it and what your favorite exhibits are. And let me know if you have plans to go or if you've already been to the Folger Shakespeare Library in the comments below. And I will see you next time. Thanks for coming with me.